Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel Jury's World. Today I am going to teach you the chapter The Landscape of Soul by Nathan Tovaroy. Let's see the chapter. There in this chapter we found the contrast between Western painting and the Chinese painting. What are the differences? Let's see. Chinese painters excels in inner and spiritual landscapes, whereas the Western painting reproduce an actual view or on delicate realism, based on delicate realism. And in a Chinese painting or landscape, one can enter from any point. It is not real. It allows the active participation of the viewers. And the Chinese painter does not want you to borrow his eyes. Actually, he wants you to enter your mind. And in Western painting, what happened? It is figurative. Western painters focus on realism or the actual landscape actually. A European painter wants you to see the painting through his eyes. So you will have to borrow his eyes. So this is the basic difference between the Chinese landscape and the Western landscape or in Western paintings. So let's see the chapter. A wonderful old tale is told about the painter Yo Deoji, who lived in the 8th century. His last painting was a landscape commissioned by the Tang Emperor Xuanzong. He decorated a palace wall. The master had hidden his work behind a screen, so only the emperor would see it. For a long while, the emperor admires the wonderful scenes, discovering forests, high mountains, waterfalls, clouds floating in an immense sky, men on hilly paths, birds in flight. "Look, sir," said the painter, "in this cave, at the foot of the mountains, dwell a spirit." The painter clapped his hands, and the entrance to the cave opened. The inside is splendid, beyond anything words can convey. "Please let me show you, your majesty, the way." The painter entered the cave, but the entrance closed behind him, and before the astonished emperor could move or utter a word, the painting had vanished from the wall. Not a trace of Yo Deoji's brush was left, and the artist was never seen again in this world. So this is the story about a painter Yo Deoji. In 8th century actually he lived there, and once he was ordered to paint a landscape. He was given commission to paint a landscape, and what happened? The painter to decorate the palace wall actually. That is the Emperor Xuanzong. He had drawn a picture, a painting, and the picture had hidden his behind a screen. So his painting is hidden behind a screen. So only the emperor can see that painting actually, and he admires his work because there is wonderful scene discovering forests, high mountains, waterfalls, clouds floating in the immense sky, men on hilly paths, and birds in flights. So all these are painted on that painting. But the painter Deoji, what he said, that in this cave at the foot of the mountain dwells a spirit. And when the painter clapped his hand, the door of this entrance is open. And inside is splendid, beyond anything word can explain, more than that. So the painter entered on that cave. He asked the emperor that, I will show you the way, my majesty. And when he entered into the cave, what happened? The entrance closed behind him. And before the emperor could say anything, the painting also was vanished from that wall. And also the painter, Dioghilev, never seen again in this world. So this is very interesting tale about the Chinese painting. Such stories played an important part in Chinese classical educations. The books of Confucius and Zhuangzi are full of them. They help the master to guide his discipline in the right directions. Beyond the anecdote, they are deeply revealing of the spirit in which art was considered. Contrast this story or another famous one about a painter who would not draw the eyes of a dragon he had painted for fear it would fly out of the painting, with an old story from my native Flanders that I find most representative of Western painting. So this is another story about a painting, famous painting, where the painter would not draw the eyes of the dragon because he is afraid maybe the dragon will fly out of the painting. So these are stories that sustained in that time. In 15th century, Antwerp, a master blacksmith called Quentin Matsys fell in love with a painter's daughter. The father would not accept a son-in-law in such a profession, means blacksmith. The father would not accept, so Quentin sneaked into the painter's studio and painted a fly on his lattice panel with such delicate realism that the master tried to sweep it away before he realized what had happened. Quentin was immediately admitted as an apprentice into his studio. He married his beloved and went on to become one of the most famous painters of his age. These two stories illustrate that what each form of art is trying to achieve, a perfect illusionistic likeness in Europe, the essence of inner life and the spirit in Asia. So, see this story. The painter won't allow the blacksmith to marry his daughter because he did not like his son-in-law in such a profession. But what happened? Quentin, he sneaked into the painter studio and draw a fly there in his latest panel. And the master, who tries to sweep it away, and before he realized that what had happened, he can understand that, and Quentin became one of the famous painters of his age. So these two stories illustrate what each of them art is actually trying to achieve. In a Chinese story, the emperor commissioned a painting and appreciates its outer appearance, but the artist reveals to him the true meaning of his work. The emperor may rule over the territory he has conquered, but only the artist knows the way within. Let me show the way, the do, a word that means both the part of the method or the mysterious works of the universe. The painting is gone, but the artist has reached his goal beyond any material appearances. So, means he has it, the spiritual happiness, because the Chinese painting believes on spiritualism, inner beauty, isn't it? A classical Chinese landscape is not meant to reproduce an actual view, as would a Western figurative paintings. Whereas the European painters wants you to borrow his eyes and look at a particular landscape exactly as he saw it. From a specific angle, the Chinese painter does not choose a single viewpoint. His landscape is not a real one, and you can enter it from any point. So, his Chinese painter does not choose a single viewpoint. His landscape is not a real one, and you can enter it in any point, then travel in it. That is creates a path for you, for your eyes actually, to travel up and down, then back again. It is a leisurely movement actually. This is one more true in the case of horizontal scroll, in which the section of slowly opening one section of the painting, then rolling it up to move on to the other, adds a dimension of time which is unknown in any other form of painting. It also requires the active participation of the viewers, who decides at what pace he would travel through the painting. A participation which is physical as well as mental. The Chinese painters does not want you to borrow his eyes. He wants you to enter his minds. The landscape is an inner one, a spiritual and conceptual space. So, here, the Chinese painter does not want to borrow his eyes, whereas the Western painter wants us to borrow his eyes. Here, in Chinese painter wants you to enter his mind, not in his eyes. This concept is expressed as Sansui, literally mountains water, which is used together represents the word landscape. More than two elements of an image, this represents two complementary poles reflecting the Taoist view of the universe. The mountain is young, reaching vertically towards heaven, stable and warm, and dry in the sun, while the water is wind, horizontal and resting on the earth, fluid, moist and cold. The interaction of wind, the receptive feminine aspect of universal energy, and its counterpart, young, active and masculine, is of course a fundamental notion of Taoism. What is often overlooked is an essential third element, the middle void, where their interaction takes place. This can be compared with the yogic practice of pranayama. Breathe in, retain, breathe out. The suspension of breath is the void where meditation occurs. The middle void is essential. Nothing can happen without it. Hence, the importance of the white, unpainted space is Chinese landscape. This is also where man finds a fundamental role in that space between heaven and earth. He becomes the conduit of communications between both poles of the universe. His presence is essential, even if it is only suggestion. suggested, far from being lost or oppressed by the lofty speaks. He is in Francois Senga's wonderful expressions, the eye of the landscape. This is a script from Landscape of the Soul. Ethics and spirituality in Chinese painting, slightly edited. So this is only I have given you here in this board. So again I am entering his mind. You can write his mind. His mind. So basic thing is that Western painting based on religion and Chinese painting based on inner spirituality. So this is the main point here. Let's see getting inside outsider art. When French painter Jean Dauberfet made the concept of art brut in the 1940s, the art of the untrained visionary was of minority interest. From its almost wild beginnings, outsider art has gradually become the fastest growing area of interest in contemporary art internationally. This genre is described as the art of those who have no right to be artists as they have received no formal training, yet show talent and artistic insight. Their works are a stimulating contrast to a lot of mainstream offerings. Around the time Dauberfet was propounding his concept in India, an untutored genius was creating paradise. Years ago, the little patch of jungle that he began clearing to make himself a garden sculptures with stones and recycled materials is known to the world today as the Rock Garden in Chandigarh. Its 80 years old creator, director, Nexon, is now hailed as India's biggest contributor to outsider art. The 50th issue, Spring 2005 of Raw vs. Bison, a UK-based magazine pioneer in outsider art publications, features Nexon and his rock garden sculptures Omen by the Waterfall on its anniversary issues cover. The notion of art brut or raw art was of works that were in their raw state as regards cultural and artistic influences. Anything and everything from a tin to a sink to a broken down car could be material for a work of art. Something Nexon has taken to dizzying heights, recognizing his art as an outstanding testimony of the difference a single man can make when he lives his dream. The Swiss Commissions for UNESCO will be honoring him by way of a European exposition of his works. The 5-month interactive show Realm of Nexon, beginning October, will be held at leading museum in Switzerland, Belgium, France and Italy. The biggest reward is walking through the garden and seeing people enjoy my creation, Nexon says. Brinda Suri, Hindustan Times, 28 August 2005. It's an article from this Hindustan Times. So, this is all about art and culture, the view of Chinese art and the European view of art. Hope you can understand the chapter. If you like my video, do like, share and subscribe. Thank you. কি এইটো নামটো ওলাই থাকিলে কাৰণে হেৰি হৈ থাকিলে অ' তাক অপেন কৰা নাছিল নি ৰাজা ৰামান কি হ'ল ঠিকেই নাই What is the concept of sensui? Sensui means mountain in water. So sensui literally means mountain in water, and these two elements represent the Davis views of the universe. Yang and yin. Yang is mountain and yin is water. And it rises vertically to heaven, and yin rises horizontal and resting on the earth. Yang is active and masculine, whereas yin is receptive and feminine concept of energy. Yang is warm and yin is fluid, moist and cold. The mountain and water are not opposite actually, but two complementary poles. The interaction of active yang and the receptive yin completes the landscape. So this is the concept of sensui. What do you understand by the term outsider art and art brut or raw art? So the term outsider art is the art of those who have no right to be an artist actually. It is also called art brut or raw art. French painter Dauberfet originated the concept of art brut in 1940s. It is the art of those artists who receive no formal training actually, yet show talent and artistic insight. They and their works provide a stimulating contrast to the mainstream artist. Raw art is the art of untutored genius like Nick Chand. He created the famous rock garden in Chandigarh. So this is the raw art, means the work of untutored painters who does not have their formal education in painting.